Welcome to Melanin Mysteries, the true crime podcast that explores intriguing cases involving relationships in the Black community and beyond. We dive into the stories that need to be told, often with graphic details and sensitive themes. Please be aware that this podcast contains descriptions of extreme violence and disturbing subject matter and adult content. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to episode 2 of Melanin Mysteries. I'm your host, Tiffany.
And I'm Willie.
And today we are serving up a heaping dose of 1980s chaos with a side of crazy. Have you ever heard of a couple so toxic that they make Bonnie and Clyde look like relationship goals? To set the tone, it's 1984, big hair, shoulder pads, and a crime spree that makes your neighborhood gossip sound like a fairy tale. These two didn't just steal hearts, they stole wallets, cars, and unfortunately lives too. So grab your popcorn because this is one wild ride through crime, manipulation, and a duo that took the term partners in crime way too literally. We do want to note that this specific case is especially heinous and does involve sexual acts against children and can be triggering. Listener discretion is highly advised. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the date is June 19th, 1984, and the badly decomposed body of 9-year-old Vernita Wheat was found in an abandoned apartment building just 2 blocks from a restaurant, Slater's Barbecue, and keep this name in mind for later. And this is in Waukegan, Illinois. She was bound with a cable TV wire around her neck. Her underwear were partially on halfway up her legs. They were inside out and backwards and pulled halfway up. Fingerprints were found on a door frame near the body. And we do want to say rest in peace to Vernita.
Yeah, rest
But
in
this
heaven.
case wouldn't go unsolved long at all. The police were already hot on the murderer's trail. So let's rewind and start at the beginning.
So police knew the murderer by name. Alton Coleman was born either October or November 6, 1955. Ohio court documents state October, and Indiana uh, court documents show November. His mother's name was Mary Bates Coleman, and he was born in Waukegan, Illinois, about 30 or so miles from Chicago. There's virtually no information about his father, so we're going to just assume that nigga was a deadbeat and he was raised by his grandmother. He had an extremely rough and crazy upbringing. His mother had drug and alcohol addictions, and that was like before and during the time she was pregnant with him. And she was a sex worker. So she was busting it wide open while he was in there. Just throwing that out there. His mother actually tossed him in the trash as an infant, and his grandmother had to come and get him. It said that his grandmother practiced voodoo and would have often kill animals and collect body parts to use in her potions. It's also noted that he was raised in an environment of group sex, often involving his mother and grandmother. That's nasty as hell, first of all. Bestiality, no, I said paraphernalia, pedophilia. I'm so sorry. Pedophilia was also common in his childhood. So he was having sex with animals, family members, kids, all of it. That's yeah. And that growing up, that was his childhood. He
Disgusting.
dropped out of school in the ninth grade. Some say he was slightly retarded, and he was teased as a child for wetting his bed. He was nicknamed Pissy. We could say retarded.
Technically, it's a medical term. Well, it was in the 80s a medical term.
So,
So we going to
well, we
rock
can't
with
call
it.
people retarded now, can we? Because I thought it was mentally
No,
delayed.
that's not the politically correct term.
Okay, all right,
Yes, the political, but again, we're talking in the 80s. So
okay. So I'm acting like we
now
in the
the
80s, so it's
politically
retarded.
correct term is going to be
Mentally delayed. Okay, okay. Well, he was retarded.
go off.
Um, yes. Before he went on a crime spree, the summer of 1984, he was already out of control. He had a lengthy rap sheet. At the age of 16 in 1972, he was convicted of burglary and disorderly conduct. He caused damage to his mother's house because she wouldn't buy him a $6 jacket. Wow. I wonder what it probably what
You
was it,
wild out over a
1972?
$6 jacket.
It probably was one of the You
So
know, it
that's
was
probably about
leather,
what,
first of
20,
all.
$25 now?
Nah, man, nah, the price then went up. It was a leather, and it probably was one of them long trench coats that Shafton and or what's his name used to wear. What's his name? Superfly. Priest. That was the man. All right, my
I mean,
bad.
it
Go
ain't the
ahead.
'60s. I mean, the '80s, the
No, that's
'80s
the
was 40
70s.
years ago now. I keep forgetting that. That's crazy.
Yeah. It really
Oh, yeah,
makes you realize.
this is the '70s. You're
Yeah,
right,
that's
because
the
he was
70s.
right, you're right, because he was born in '55. Okay, so yeah, you're about right. I'm
That's
sorry.
when
My bad.
Black
Okay,
Panther
so,
movies was out.
um yeah. So then December of 1973, he was charged with rape, attempted kidnapping, and armed robbery. He had an accomplice for this excursion. His name was Leroy Charles Lockett, and they abducted Eleanor McIntyre at gunpoint while she was in her car. The pair drove her to Evanston, Illinois, where Alton raped her. They then stole her car and $100. So he took a plea deal, Alton, for armed robbery, and he was sentenced to 2 to 6 years in an Illinois state prison. He was paroled in June 1976 after only serving 2.5 years.
Mm, wow.
That bothers me so much. Um,
But it's where you're gonna when we go through this, you're gonna see how the system failed horribly in every single way. So just want to kind of throw that out. So this it gets worse. It gets worse.
Way worse. This is just the beginning. So in September of 1976, he was accused of rape again. This time it was 17-year-old Sherry Patterson. She was driving her coworker Joy Edwards home. And on the drive, Joy looks over and sees Alton, and she asks him, has Alton seen her boyfriend? So for whatever reason, Alton gets into the car and Joy was dropped off at home. Alton then tricks Sherry into driving to an isolated area, and then he dragged her into an abandoned building where he raped her. So he was arrested for the rape, like we said. So while he's awaiting trial for Sherry, he's accused of 3 counts of sexual assault. And this is literally, he had only been in jail for 5 days when he caught these other 3 charges. Um, he forced 3 different inmates to engage in various sexual acts with him, including anal and oral sex. 2 of the victims were 19 and the other was just 18. He was convicted of battery for the 3 counts and was sentenced 6 months in jail. So for basically raping 3 people, he got 6 months in jail. That was all for
Wow.
those 3 counts. That's 2 months for each count, basically. No time at all. And for
So
that rape of Sherry,
mhm.
I don't even want to say because I'm so upset. He was acquitted by a jury at trial. The man gets off with rape scot free twice, basically, because he did the plea deal before, so he gets the 2 to 5 years. He didn't even get charged for rape with the first one in Evanston, Illinois, and then for the second one, he gets completely acquitted of rape, and he only does 6 months for those 3 assaults. Ridiculous.
So then went to jail on a rape charge. He then took 3 dudes Bucci cat, and they didn't even charge him for rape. They charged that dude with what battery.
Assault.
So imagine being an 18-year-old was in jail, maybe because I forgot to pay a traffic ticket. Because they would usually put them all in a like when they're in the beginning, before like they go to trial, they usually all like all in the same location. So you can get murderers and individuals that would caught with right in bad chests, and they can all be in the same location. So imagine you in there for, I don't know, hypothetically passing a bad check, and you get raped. And then the dude only gets 6 months for it. That's horrible. They done took these dude Bucci cats.
And not just 6 months for you. He really only got 2 months for you because it was 3 separate counts. So he got 2 months for each count, which that's what is 6 months. He did his 6 months and he back out on the streets.
He was acquitted by a jury. So it was 12 people that heard what he did, and they acquitted him. and now that young lady, she don't even get justice, man. That's horrible.
Horrible.
In July 1980, he was accused of rape, deviant sexual assault of 22-year-old Dorothy Hawkins. So here you go again. She was a black woman. They met at a disco, and Dorothy invited Alton to a picnic at the Grand Lakes Naval Station, where she was stationed as a member of the U.S. Navy. She mentioned to Alton that she was looking for somewhere to live off base, and Alton offered to show her some apartment complexes. He then took her to an industrial area of Waukegan where he raped her orally and vaginally. He then dropped her back off at the barracks. Dorothy pressed charges and identified Alton in the lineup. What do you think happened?
Let me take a wild guess in the dark. He got off for that one too.
Yes, he was again acquitted by a jury, right? So that's another one and another one. So in September 1981, 16-year-old Lisa Mann and 14-year-old Lisa Pfeiffer both were runaways from Kenosha, Wisconsin. So he didn't he didn't get them some youngins. And remember, at the time he's 25. They're 16 and 14. They all went to the liquor store. So he was with one of his friends. Yeah, Leonard Lynch. So it was the two young ladies. It was Alton and Leonard Lynch. They went to the liquor store. Then they went back to Alton's apartment. Lisa Mann reported she was raped by Leonard, while Lisa Pfeiffer was in another room with Alton. What happened between Alton and Lisa too was unknown, and the case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. So I'm assuming that she said, "Hey, he raped me too," and they was like, nah, no evidence. They probably looking like they're runaways. And then not to mention, this is in the 70s. No, this is in the 80s at the time, and they were black. So you know they didn't take that serious whatsoever. So he got off on that one also.
So at this point, he's gotten off with several rapes. Several. And he's still out on the streets.
This,
Still
yeah,
out on the streets.
nasty ass nigga. Go ahead.
So in July of 1983, Alton was again arrested, now this time for indecent liberties with a child. Terry Coleman, who was his sister, reported that Alton tried to kick her door down because he was so pissed off. Pissed off about what? Terry accused him of molesting her daughter, Melinda, who at the time was 8. So Melinda told her mom, Terry, that Alton, when he visited their home on June 3rd, he came into the bathroom behind her and he fondled her bare butt and digitally penetrated her vagina. Terry testified that she saw Alton rushing from the bathroom. She did take her daughter for a medical exam. Unfortunately, it didn't reveal any evidence or physical trauma, so they dismissed that case as well. And I'm very confused because are they not looking back at his history to see that he has a history of violence? I know you can't base an entire case off of that, but don't they see that there is some type of history here? Like, as my mama used to say, do you see the pattern? Because I see the
So,
pattern.
number one, we got to remember this is in the 80s, which is kind of weird because usually they looking to sink a black man. But I think the fact that yes, is black women that's involved, they're not taking it serious. Then number 2, the issue is those 3 rape cases when he took them young men's Bucci cats in jail, he should have been convicted of rape, but they did what they charged him again with battery. They charged I guess the crazy part is it makes me think they don't have the ability to even they can't look at previous cases even though they dropped the case to a battery, they still could not look at those cases to see like okay, even though he did take a plea deal or whatever the case may be, he still raped these people. We're just not going to charge him for it. So you would think they would see that. So when they
Exactly.
get these cases, yeah, they just letting this dude go. So he just out there just raping all willy nilly.
Like, he's literally running wild. So yeah, so basically he's running wild. So he's like, "Oh, I can get away with this." So of course, it's like a little kid. You let them get away with one thing, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna try it again," and they're gonna continuously, try and see what they can do. So on to February 26th of 1984. Alton meets Dorothea Thompson as she waited on her daughter, 14-year-old Chalindra, to get off work at Burger King. Dorothea was talking to Alton about job opportunities and gave him her home address and phone number. Remember, this is all pre-cell phone era. I don't know what type of weirdness went on in the 80s. I wasn't born yet, but I'm confused as to why you're giving out your home address, why you couldn't just give a phone number. Beyond me, but whatever. So
Yeah,
2
right.
days later, Alton goes to Dorothea's home. Exactly. Goes to Dorothea's home, and her daughter Chalindra was home alone. So Alton goes to the home, and this is under the guise of dropping off a job application. Chalindra let Alton in the house where he rapes her at knife point. And the story gets worse from here. Not only did he rape her, then he forces her to write in his journal. This man is a weirdo. You're carrying around a journal on a mission to go rape somebody. He's a fucking
Freaky ass nigga.
weirdo.
He a 69 God.
And it
Fuck
said,
that.
quote, it said, quote, Al, I really enjoyed tonight and we must do this again soon. They noticed a dry teardrop that fell on the page. Love, Chalindra Thompson. P.S. Let this be our little secret. Lock his ass up now. He was arrested for this charge. At this point, he should have been locked up. Like, I don't believe that any of this, he would have been locked up for that first case. Maybe none of this would have happened.
Exactly.
But I digress. He was arraigned for this case on May 30th of 1984. This is the morning after he brutally raped and murdered Vernita Wheat. But he never made it to this trial, or he was never even prosecuted for this trial. We've given you the background on who the monster that we now know is Alton Coleman. So let's get into the murder spree that he and his better or worse half committed. So we're going to go back to Vernita Wheat and
Okay.
give you a little background information on everything that came about with her. Vernita Wheat was who was Vernita's mother. Said at the time she resided in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with her daughter Vernita and her 7-year-old son Brandon. At the beginning of May, or maybe it was the end of April, she wasn't sure, but it was 1984. Alton introduced himself to Juanita as a Mr. Robert Knight. He showed her an ID card that had that name, and he told her that he lived just 2 blocks away. Alton actually lived in Waukegan, Illinois, 2 totally different states.
Exactly.
So that evening, Alton ate dinner with Juanita at her apartment and he played with her kids. So several days later, Alton comes back to Juanita's apartment. He spends time there with her and her children. He meets Juanita's cousin. Her name was Willie Mae Peebles. May 29th, he comes back to Juanita's apartment and he just comes into the apartment of her neighbor, actually, which I thought was weird. Her name was Ellen Reeves, and it says that Juanita was visiting her. Juanita introduces Alton to Ellen, and then Alton takes Juanita's children to a carnival. And he brings the kids back to Juanita's apartment about 10:15 p.m. That's so weird. You're just letting some random man you just met take your kids.
Man, the 1980s, why were they so
Um,
trustworthy back then? Like, jeez. I mean, it was crack. That's what it was.
well, they didn't say anything about anybody smoking crack at this point in time, but we will continue. So Juanita allows Vernita to go with Alton. They leave around 10:35 p.m. And by midnight, Vernita's not back home, and her mother's like, "Where's my kids?" So of course she's starting to freak out because again, there's no cell phone, so it's not like you can call anybody and say, "Hey, where you at? What's your ETA? You can't check locations." Kid is just out. So Juanita starts going out around the neighborhood looking for Vernita. She goes to the address that, quote, Robert gave her, and it's an abandoned house. From there, Juanita goes directly to the police. She's not playing no games. Her daughter been missing for an hour. She's like, I'm to the police. This man that gave me the wrong address. I don't know where my child is. And I'm sure she is in a state of hysteria because I know I would be. Tell the police that she met, quote,
That's her dumb ass fault. No offense. I'm just gonna be honest. I understand that, no, do you want anything to happen to your child? No, but why would you be so trustworthy to let somebody you just met take your child? Like, that was her fault, I mean, just being honest. That I don't know what was going on in the '80s that made
I
people
agree with
feel
you.
comfortable.
I don't know either because my children are not going anywhere with some random person, man or woman that I just met. I don't trust people with my kids.
I don't even like them
But
going
again, like I said,
with
the
their
80s must
mama,
have been
so
a different time.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my kids don't sleep over people's house. Like we're very particular about my kids, and we live in the era of we can track our kids' every movement. They didn't have that back then.
Yeah.
Um, She tells the police that she met Robert a month earlier as he was riding his bike to the neighborhood, but the police couldn't find a Robert Knight anywhere on record. They give Juanita mugshots to look through, and she identifies Alton Coleman as the man who abducted her daughter. Surprise, surprise.
Exactly.
The FBI is immediately called in. Bernardina Passanelli was in charge of the case. A search warrant was issued for Alton's last known address, which was his grandmother's home. And this is where we meet Deborah Denise Brown. So this is just a reminder that Deborah will eventually become Alton's accomplice in the murders going forward. Deborah Denise Brown was born November 11th, 1962, on the south side of Chicago. To her mother, Lottie Mae Brown. Her father's name is unavailable, but it is said that he was physically abusive to his wife and children. He was mentally disabled and he drank excessively. She was the fifth of 11 children and grew up in the Ida B. Wells projects. During the 1970s, the family moved to Zion and she attended Zion Benton High School until she dropped out in 1978. She was enrolled in special ed classes growing up, but they said she never gave anybody any trouble. Deborah had a head injury due to a car accident as a child, and there was a possibility that it caused her to be mentally delayed.
Oh, so she
She was
retarded.
described by her mother as a nice and quiet teenager, 80s termed.
Sorry.
She was very close to her siblings, and at the time that she met Alton, she was actually engaged to be married to someone else. Worst mistake of her life. To
Right.
make money, she would babysit for family and friends after she dropped out of high school. So she met Alton at a nightclub or whatever in Waukegan. Lottie, her mother, said that Alton was very handsome and he was very nice and polite when she met him. And Deborah almost immediately broke off her engagement so that she could see Alton. And eventually she ended up cutting off ties with her family. Lottie started to hear rumors about Alton being a rapist. Of course, she doesn't want her daughter involved with that type of man. I'm sure she's concerned about her safety first and foremost. Claimed she was grown and
I apologize. How do the mama know he a rapist, but the police don't? And everybody else. Ain't that crazy? I just caught that.
feel like the alleged case of Diddy, the media know more than the cops do, apparently. So
I know that's
that's
just
that. And anything else to do but gossip.
exactly. They can't convict the man, but so everybody know he a rapist, but he ain't been convicted. That's crazy to me. Go ahead. Uh,
Exactly. So, but Deborah says, I'm grown. This is my man. I'm riding for my man. You can't tell me what to do. I know that all too well at this point right now. So Deborah moves into Alton's home with his grandmother. She stopped all communication with her family for over a year. And when she did start to come back around, it was only for short periods of time. And her mother stated that she acted like a robot. Lottie said, for example, she would ask Deborah a question, and instead of Deborah answering, Alton would answer her. And then Deborah would repeat whatever Alton said.
So back in 1984, when FBI showed up at Alton's grandmother's house, Deborah answered the door and told officers she was Alton's girlfriend, but she was not. But he wasn't home. She provided home health care for Alton's grandmother and had been for a year. When she was questioned, she told police that Alton had been gone all night and came home earlier that morning around 8 o'clock, but he did not stay. He had a court case that he had to go to for Shalandra, of course. He mentioned to Deborah that he had done something bad the night before, but he didn't go into detail. So it looks like she was cooperating with the police at this time. Police stayed at Alton's grandmother's house waiting for him to return. They also sent out a search party. The police questioned Deborah on any information they could get on Alton, and she was cooperating and assisting the police to bring him in. Now, when the police were searching for Alton, the search was also on for Vanita. That was the young child that was kidnapped by this crazy dude. Alton and Vanita
Monster.
exactly. Alton and Vanita had been spotted at 11:35 on May 29th in Kenosha at in a Kenosha tavern called the 400 Club. So he's taking a little kid to a bar, but maybe I don't know. Maybe they thought that was his child or something. So they didn't say anything. So maybe it didn't raise any suspicion to any of the people that was patronizing the location. Then they picked up a cab and they were driven to that Slater's barbecue. The cab driver called in with a tip. He said he picked up the pair, dropped them off around midnight near a scrapyard in Waukegan, Illinois. Police went to that scrapyard and questioned the manager, who identified both Alton and Vanita. He had taken her across state lines. So when you do that, that's when the FBI gets involved. So the FBI brought in search dogs, but they did not find anything at all. Now back in Waukegan, Alton wasn't aware. He was not aware that the police was on to him. So he heads to his sister's Terry house around 7 p.m. Let's pause right there. Nigga, you just tried to rape
You
me. Oh,
came
you
back
raped
to
my
my
daughter.
house
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, speak.
and you come back to my house? You lucky I didn't kill you dead on the spot when you showed up in my house.
That speaks volume on the mother because he should not even feel comfortable enough to come back to the house. Like, nigga, you would never be allowed
Exactly.
over to my house again. That shit is crazy to me. But Terry told Alton that the police had come by and questioned her about a missing girl in Kenosha. And the fact that she is even telling Alton that the police came there speaks man, dumbass. Dumbass.
Because if he did it to your daughter, why wouldn't he do it to someone else?
And not only that, they just told you exactly, and you still get this dude information. I don't get it. You got let me tell you, I'm snitching. I'm a look, I'm a snitch. I'm a pay. I don't give a shit. Street code, fuck all that. I'm snitching, period, point blank. That's all I'm saying. So the police also arrived around 7 p.m. as they had a tip that a cab driver dropped him off there. He saw the police and he dipped. So he saw the police coming, he left. The police asked Terry for her help and she was down. So she did help the police, but she also helped Alton. Real talk. So yeah, whatever. She was on the horn calling for Alton to turn himself in. The search lasted for 8 hours and Alton was gone. The media was informed to get more information for assistance on locating Vanita. So remember, they're still looking for this young girl. But they're looking for him also. And I think they're kind of putting pieces together and realizing that look, she ain't with him. So, most likely he end up doing something. So trust and believe they probably know that they're looking for a dead body. So it wasn't until June 19th, 1984, when a man was looking through an abandoned building looking for scrap metal. I guess he was selling it and he came across the body of Anita, rest in heaven. And he instantly called the authorities. At the scene, there was a palm print that was we mentioned before, and it did in fact belong to Alton. And the FBI warrant was immediately issued for its arrest. Thank God. Finally. Finally. Somewhere in
Yeah, now if
between
the FBI done got involved, maybe something will stick.
yes, maybe something. You're absolutely correct, but it gets worse. So somewhere in between the time when the police were searching for Alton and Vanita, that's when Deborah decided that she was about to join her man and go on a run. So she knows how depraved and vile and disgusting this dude is, and her retarded ass. Excuse my French, but this is the '80s, so I can say it. This is all based in the '80s. She decided I'm gonna go along with him. I'm about to ride my man, my man, my man.
I have no words, so I'll just continue on. The day before the body of Vernita was found, Alton and Deborah committed their first crime together in Gary, Indiana. Relationship goals, right? Let's like, come on, baby, let's go commit a crime.
She was
This will be a
down.
great date. Alton and Deborah approached Tamika Turks and Annie Hilliard. The girls were 7 and 9 at the time, as they were walking home from a candy store and a hot dog stand. Annie later said that Deborah and Alton offered to give the girls some clothes, but the girls said no, and they kept walking. So Deborah and Alton continued to walk with them, and at some point, Alton walks off, and Deborah continued coercing the girls, and they ended up in a secluded wooded area. During this time, Alton reappears and said he wanted to take the girls to his grandmother's house and play a game. So I'm sure these poor babies were like terrified because they're little, they're kids,
Yes, and
and you got
they
these two
yeah.
grown people.
That's obviously
Yeah,
harassing
and
them.
unfortunately, harassing, because if they already told you no, thank you, I don't want it, leave us alone. But no, here comes the couple. Like, this is what we do. So Tamika's shirt was taken and cut up into strips, and both of the girls were tied up. Tamika was brutally beaten by the couple while one was holding Tamika's mouth closed. Alton then stomped on her chest and her abdomen.
Damn.
They took that poor baby further into the woods and left her there where they assumed she was dead. Annie was
Mm.
forced to perform oral sex on Alton and Deborah, and then Alton vaginally raped her. And during this assault, the couple heard moaning from Tamika and they went back and strangled her. They left Tamika there, And then the couple comes back and took turns strangling Annie with a belt, and they left her for dead.
Man, they sick, bro.
So they basically kidnapped these kids, tortured them, and these are children. They tortured these children and then tried to they killed them and left them for dead. So Tamika sadly passed away from her injuries. Rest in
Mm,
peace to Tamika.
yeah.
Annie suffered serious injuries. Her intestines were protruding into her vaginal cavity, and she did require surgery.
So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to back up.
What?
So
Oh,
yeah, she passed out and she later woke up and was able to wander around in the woods, and that's when she was found by a passerby, and they called the police. I would just want to throw that in so they knew how she was found. So she woke up and she wandered out the woods, and somebody obviously driving must have saw her, or whatever the case may be, and they called the police, and that's how they were able to get her. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. So Annie was able to point out Alton in a photo, and she also described Deborah to the police. So now Deborah is considered a suspect, and she's no longer a witness.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. This, again, everything they did was everything Alton did was it was horrible. But this one about the two young girls, this is the one that actually like it hurt my stomach. When you even said it yourself when you were doing research on this, like this was the part of the case that it kind of how did it make you feel when you saw this? Well, when you were doing the research and you found out about this.
It would It was it was difficult to write. Like, I literally had to stop writing several times and just take a break because I'm just thinking about these are children and how scared these children are because you have the 14 and the 16-year-old, you have these two at 7 and 9, you had those 14 and 16-year-old. These are children. And I'm a mother, so I just can't imagine, and just even having the decency to be a human, how you can just do this with absolutely no type of care in the world is horrible. Like, it honestly makes me sick to my stomach. And then I'm trying to figure out, how in the hell did you let some random ass man, because to me you're random, take your child out of your possession, and it was late at night. Yeah, so just I'm sorry, I switched subjects,
No, no,
but
no, no,
going back
no.
to
We good. We
Vernita,
good. Go ahead.
it's this is a child, a small child, and you let some man take your child late at night. What do you think he's gonna do with her? No, sir. First of all, no, you don't need to take my child. You want to get a stereo or whatever? Just go to the house and bring it back. No, she don't need to go with you. But I guess with him being so depraved, he was gonna get what he was gonna get regardless. And then, and this is something that just crossed my mind with how sickening this is. So if I'm sure if they were quote unquote dating, they were having sex. So you're having sex with the mother, but you're also gonna take her child and rape her.
That's why
How
people
disgusting are you?
Yes, that's why people need to really be conscious of who they are bringing around their kids. Like, you can't just bring anybody around your kids. I don't even care if they say, "Well, like, have kids." You cannot bring anybody around your kids because of situations like this, and unfortunately, you would think that we are in 2024. Technology has gotten better, and social media, so you see things. You would think that times have changed so much where people will be more conscious of that, knowing all the things that have happened prior, and you'll be surprised it's still women and men that are allowing their children to be around individuals they have no business being around.
Exactly. And you as a parent, your job is to protect your child, and you protect your child at all costs. And
Yep.
protecting your child is not allowing your child to go with some random man you just met.
Yeah, man. So
That's
this,
just
yeah,
that.
yeah. So this
Now,
is
and unfortunately, her mother has to live with that for the rest of her life,
yeah, and we're
that
gonna post pictures of the
you're
mother
responsible for
also.
your child being murdered.
Yeah, we got pictures of her, so you
Yes,
guys will be
but
able to see it.
you're responsible for you're essentially responsible for your child's murder, because had you not made in reality a dumbass decision to let your child just go with some random man you have no idea. Like I said, you didn't like she said she went to his house. It's abandoned. You didn't think to check into that before you sent your child with him? Was she smoking crack? It seemed like it has to be, because I just like in my just a logical mind, and I understand that maybe back in the 80s things were safer, but I just still don't understand how you allow some man you do not know to take your child
So yeah, I don't think it
and
was
think it's
safer.
gonna be okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was safer. I just believe that it would we didn't have access to the information we have now where we can see it. Like I remember when I was younger, the only time I heard of a child getting abducted was a girl named Amy Mahalovic. I think that was her name. Do you remember that? She lived in where was she living at? It was in
I have no idea.
near
The name
Cleveland.
sounds familiar, but I can't
Yeah,
place
that's
it.
yeah. I just that was it. Like for me as a child, Amy Mahalovic, and I remember it because it was so close to Cleveland. It happened in one of the suburbs right next to Cleveland, and I can't think of it. I can't think of the suburb, but that's all I heard at that time. But so I don't think it was safer. I just think we didn't have access to the information that we do now to see everything that's going on. That's all I do. But with that being said, yes, this is the end part one. The second part will be coming up. It's a lot more. Again, it's a lot of violence. It's a lot of murder. It's bad. So just make sure if you are very sensitive, don't listen to the shit.
This is not the episode for you,
Hell no. I can't
and
even
we
get none
won't
of these
hold it
jokes
against
in.
you.
I can't even there's no humor. Like I try to throw in a joke, every once in a while, but you can't with some of the shit that they did. There's nothing funny. So, but okay, we definitely appreciate you guys listening. Would you like to say anything, Miss Tiffany?
Yes, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. So on Instagram, we're Melanin Mysteries Pod, TikTok Melanin Mysteries Pod, and Facebook Melanin Mysteries Podcast. We will be back with part 2 next week. And like we said, this is still this case is a lot, and we didn't want to bombard you with the entire case all at one time. So we will see you next week.
Take it easy.